Once again, I am up in the early mornings. I actually get up every day at 6:30 a.m., which sounds horrible, but it just kind of fell into my lap that overall time frame. And so it's almost perfect because I think these come out at like 6 a.m. Pacific time or like 6:30 Pacific time. So it's overall really perfect. I'm wearing the exact same shirt because I didn't want to put on a new shirt because I haven't showered yet. Because it's in the morning, it's in the early morning. It's cool though. I have my coffee. All will be good. Allow me a sip. Delicious. All right, let's get talking. We have Chaos Demons today. So I was a little curious about demons, the legions of the dark gods. We now return to Bricky's daily scheduled program of God damn, this cover goes hard. I love the pink horror or whatever, just like rock on as he completely nullifies all of the sisters' bolt shots. Good luck using that little sigil or whatever. Anywho, so I was a little curious about demons because demons are, at least for ninth, a surprisingly well balanced army, I'd say. They get some tournament placings here and there. Their win rate was like, I think 52%, not too bad at all. Pretty good. The biggest issue I always had with demons is that they were a bit non-interactive. The demon save was the big problem with that. But at the same time, the demon save kind of made things on a more baseline level less annoying. And demons as an army really just depended on who you fought. I fought demons with a very heavily tank-based born soldiers list in guard, and the demons player was not happy because auto sixes to wound break through like all their defenses. Where I also played a few other armies like Custodes actually against demons, and I got my ass rocked. So it all depends, I think, and also, I'm not as good of a player with certain armies than others, but it all depends. I know their last ability was -1 to leadership and combat attrition overall. Let's see, but the army rule now is the Shadow of Chaos. If you're it's all the so it's the army rule, right? Shadow of Chaos. It says here that your deployment zone is always in the Shadow of Chaos. Because when you think about, chaos has to manifest from like a tear in the warp or some weird kind of crap, right? Because they can't exist in real space normally. So your deployment zone is always in the Shadow of Chaos. At the start of any phase, if you control at least half of the objective markers within No Man's Land, until the end of that phase, No Man's Land is within your army's Shadow of Chaos. It should be noted here that it says at the start of any phase. We'll talk about that in a sec. At the start of any phase, if you control at least half of the objective markers within your opponent's deployment zone, until the end of that phase, your opponent's deployment zone is within your army's Shadow of Chaos. So basically, your deployment zone is always in the Shadow of Chaos at all times, even if you don't control the objectives there. And at the start of the other phases, if you are taking objectives across the board, you are pushing out your Shadow of Chaos. You are adding more to this overall shadow. With manifestation, if a unit is within your army's Shadow of Chaos, you get +1 to your battle shock tests. And if the test is passed, one model in that unit regains up to D3 lost wounds. If that unit is a battle line unit and the test is passed, up to D3 destroyed models can be returned instead. So this is a little bit in the same vein as the reanimation protocols, just adjusted for the time and specifics. If you are a big, demon or like a fiend or just a multi-wound demon in general, you get D3 lost wounds. If you're a battle line unit, which I'm assuming are things like plague bearers, perhaps demonettes, etc., you can get up to D3 destroyed models. And then in demonic terror, if an enemy unit is within your army's Shadow of Chaos, they get -1 to their battle shock test. And if they fail it, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, which is a pretty good debuff. So we have to do a couple of thinkings here, a couple of thoughts with this whole thing, right? For starters, in the Shadow of Chaos, it says so actually, I'll skip this real quick because I want to talk about this attachment rule and then we'll get back to it. Each time a Legiones Daemonica unit from your army is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike ability, if it is set up wholly within your army Shadow of Chaos, it can be set up anywhere that has more than 6 horizontally instead of 9. So in the current iteration of Demons right now, for those of you, because I know a lot of you are just kind of getting back into the game because you're like, ooh, 10th. So let me try to explain it a bit so you can get a better understanding. Some of you have said very nice things, which was like, hey, I don't understand 40K. Thanks for explaining stuff more in depth. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to keep doing that then. Basically the whole point is that normally you deep strike outside of 9 inches. That's like Terminators teleporting in, that kind of stuff. Demons in their current iteration had a rule where you could deep strike them in within a certain inches that is either 9 or the leadership characteristic of the enemy. So the idea is that they could come in closer to more scared enemies. This particularly being like guardsmen with a leadership of 7, and so, or their sergeant was 7, so you could bring them in 7 inches. See, Demons had a aura of -1 leadership, so you could make it even more, 6 inches, that kind of thing. So in order to adjust that, and since leadership is not really the same as it used to be, now in this detachment rule, I should make clear, so when the Demons Codex comes out, they will have a different couple detachment rules. You can do it within 6 inches, so long as you are within, wholly within your Shadow of Chaos, which is important to note because it says here at the start, because the one you're going to care the most about is the No Man's Land, right? That's the one you're going to be fighting over the most. At the start of any phase, at the start. So you can't move on to objectives and then deep strike the really good 6 inches because you didn't have it at the start of the phase. You need to have already had it over the time, which I guess could represent Chaos's slow encroachment. You have to keep it for at least a turn, right? Which I think is good because I think the ability to just shove people off objectives and then immediately deep strike within 6 would be a bit of a wombo combo. It's a little hard to deal with, especially if you did it in your opponent's deployment zone somehow. But it is pretty interesting to note. This manifestation thing is really fun. I should note that the Battle Shock test, unless there's another reason for it to be forced, this can be a little bit hilarious because a Battle Shock test is only taken if you are under half wounds, if for a big creature, or under half strength. Is it at or under? If I had 10 and I went to 5, do I have to take a Battle Shock test or do I have to go to 4? Is it under half strength or at half? Doesn't matter. One of you can correct me in the comments, but one of those things, right? That's the only time you take a Battle Shock test. And then, of course, you get +1 on the test, and if you pass it, you get D3 wounds back or battle line models. So in reality, you're not going to be getting your wounds back unless you're halfway injured or your unit is close to death anyway, unless the enemy has a way to mess with you. And I'm looking at this, and I'm just thinking to myself, how goddamn funny would it be if the Tyranids are like, bong, shadow in the warp. And then if all the ones in the Shadow of Chaos just pass all their tests and regain a ton of models and just regain all these wounds, it'd be pretty hilarious. So I was thinking about that a little bit. However, Demonic Terror is genuinely a really cool way to make the enemy worse, like the -1 combat attrition and all that. If they are stuck in your Shadow of Chaos, then the Battle Shock test thing is worse, and they take mortal wounds to go along with it. It's a great way to represent the absolute mind-altering terror that demons have. And it should also go to note that this part where it says at the start of any phase, you control these half objective markers, it becomes Shadow of Chaos. That's actually pretty darn good in the Terror version. Not so good for the Warp Rips version, but good for the Terror version, because then you can get it at the end of your movement phase or whatever, or perhaps you can flip it at the end of the fight phase or something, so that when it turns the opponent's turn, it has now become the Shadow of Chaos, and their Battle Shock tests will be affected. So the time frame of it is bad for the Deep Strike, which I think is actually good, because this would be quite annoying, and good for the Terror. I like this. I was a little worried when I started reading this because it was like, that's a lot of text, right? but it actually came out to be rather easy to understand once I looked at it. And quite flavorful. Very, very fun from a demon's perspective. You're really selling that whole like chaos made manifest, you know? Anyway, down here is another Chaos Army rule. I got a little scared when I saw this because this is a major rule, but this is basically just saying, hey, if you're playing a 2K game, which is a Strike Force game, 2,000 points, up to 500 points of it can be Chaos Demons. If it's a Chaos Army, so 1,500 points of CSM, 500 of Demons. 1,500 points of Chaos Knights, 500 points of Demons. However, if your army is World Eaters, it has to be Khorne, K-Suns, Tzeentch, etc., etc. Interestingly enough, it says your warlord is Lucius the Eternal. I'm assuming they say that because there is no Emperor's Children, and so it's if you're running an Emperor's Children warlord for a CSM army, because there's no Emperor's Children yet. That's my assumption. So I guess if you want to run, if you don't want to be only running Slaanesh Demons, don't make Lucius your warlord, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, this is just if you want to add stuff, which is fine. All right. Good old GW here provided not one, but two chunky guys for the actual data sheet. I kind of expected a battle line unit. I kind of thought I was going to get Demonettes or something, but hey, it is what it is. The Keeper of Secrets, I would argue, is probably the best Greater Demon right now in 9th. You could say Bloodthirster. I think it really depends. But it's a nasty creature. But let's talk about the Keeper of Secrets. So, keywords: monster, character, psyker, Chaos Demon / Keeper of Secrets. Sorry. When I talk a lot, I get the hiccup sometimes. 14-inch move, so this thing still flies down the battlefield. T10, which is pretty good toughness, nothing too crazy, but a pretty solid number there. Will make it's better than T7, because I think the Keeper of Secrets gets -1 to wound right now, or someone always takes the -1 to wound thing. So bolt guns and other small arms fire will still be pretty useless against him, whatever the hell it is, Keeper shenanigans. 18 wounds, so it's pretty damn chunky. 6 leadership and 5 OC. It has explosion of D6. It has deep strike. And its other special rules are, while a friendly Slaanesh Demons unit is within 6 inches, improve the armor penetration of the melee weapons by 1. There's a couple things to note. This is a character. However, it does not have leader in its abilities. So it does not get attached to units, but it does not get the lone operative ability either. So much like current iteration of 40K, you can shoot the Keeper of Secrets whenever you want. However, whether you choose to will depend on you, because they can also take a Shining Aegis for a 5-up Feel No Pain, which is a Homer Simpson, like, that's Homer Simpson. It's more like, what's the Home Improvement guy? Tim Allen. I'm sorry, I'm making myself laugh. 5-up Feel No Pain, wow, because it also has a 4-up Invulnerable save, and it does have a damage characteristic for -1 to hit. Interesting things to note. 1, it explodes. I don't know if the prior one exploded. That's interesting. 2, +1 AP to melee for Slaanesh units is quite good. Slaanesh is known for its volume of attacks, so that is quite frightening. And it's also -1. I just totally missed this. I'm sorry. It is also a -1 to hit at all times, which is a pretty classic Keeper thing. Other thing to note: no demon saves. No demon saves. This is totally fine. I have noticed that a lot of things, we have not seen a single thing that says ignores invul save. I have not found one. And when we get to Be'lakor, he doesn't have it either. So there's the whole point of the demon save to me was the fact that we had armor saves and invul saves, and then we were taking ignore invul saves because invul saves were being used way too often. And then in order to stop ignore invul saves, we started taking demon saves that weren't invul saves. It was literally nuh-uh. So there's no demon saves anymore, which I think is perfectly fine. A 4-up invul save is fine. Obviously, you're not going to take their 5-up save. It's simple. It's a 4-up invul save. Though a 4-up invul save and a 5-up feel no pain while -1 to hit is quite a defensive profile. Whoosh! Especially with that speed. So I will say that that's pretty nasty. As far as their weapons go, they have the Living Whip, which is an assault weapon. It's a 12-inch range, 6.612. Pretty mid, actually. Let me double check what they have currently, because I think the weapon profiles on the Keeper across the board have gone down, especially their AP. Let's see, Keeper of Secrets. The Living Whip was Assault 6, 622. So it's 612. So it went down to AP like they've been doing. Phantasmagoria was the special psychic power that so many of them had. This is now, of course, a Witchfire. So instead of it being a psychic attack, it is now a sorry. And it is 6 attacks at Ballistic Skill 2, 621, 18-inch range with devastating wounds, and it is a psychic attack, hence the keyword. Devastating wounds, as we all know, is 6s to wound, do mortals. Only 1 mortal, because the damage is 1, and the attack sequence will end, meaning you do not get to make them fail a save and do a mortal. It's the mortal instead of the save. However, there is a fancier version of it, which is just 3 more attacks, but it is hazardous, aka 1s to hit, do mortals to yourself. Fine enough trade-off, I'd say. 3 more attacks at this profile for hazardous. I'd say that's fine. Nothing else seems to change. They both have devastating wounds. Maybe it could have used like 1 more attack, maybe make it like 10, but I don't know. It's fine. I do like how the attacks are 6, which means, because, Slanesh's number is 6. I just thought it was kind of fun. Deadly Demise, D6 also. 6-inch aura, all kinds of 6s. 6 leadership, haha. Overall, the shooting is really not what you'd take a Keeper of Secrets for. Let's be honest here. I will say that it is a little bit disappointing that there is nothing else I see on this list that involves Psychic. Obviously, we don't have the backside of the list because we don't know what we lose for Shining Aegis and all that kind of stuff, how much it costs, etc. But the Keeper of Secrets was a major Psyker. I think it cast 2, new 2, or wait, I have it right here. Cast 2, and yeah, cast 2, new 2. So in reality, it was actually quite the... it was a pretty solid caster, so only getting 1 thing at Phantasmagoria as a gun and nothing else is a little sad. It loses a little bit of flavor, I'd say, but what those other abilities are could be with other units, so who knows, maybe the Contorted Epitome or Shalaxi. Anyway, melee weapons, I want you to look down here at your boy who was like, Gilliman ain't gonna use both profiles. Gilliman's not doing both, I tell you what. And right here, look at that, extra attacks. It says extra attacks in the profile. We're scrolling down real fast. Extra attacks. Weapons with extra attacks in their profile are known as extra attack weapons. Each time the bearer of such a weapon fights, it can make attacks with that weapon in addition to the 1 it chooses to fight with. The number of attacks made with any extra attack weapons cannot be modified by any other rules. Hallelujah. Your boy was right. I told you so. I will bask in my glory, or the glory of the dark gods. Yeah, I thought it was obvious, but now hopefully everyone will realize that it's just that. But these extra attacks are almost a little bit like the Malefic weapons. They can be modified in other ways, I think. Like you could probably lower their strength and stuff, or enemy abilities can do that. But you can't get even more attacks on them, which is good because it keeps them easy to understand. So the main one, of course, is the Wit Stealer Sword. 6 attacks, 8-3. If I'm not mistaken, right now it is 8-3-3, which is pretty good. It also has this special ability that allows it to screw up the enemy's wounds. It's whatever. It's a little extra thing. It barely ever came up for me because the Keeper of Secrets would just kill everything in sight. So it was, of course, 6 attacks as well here at 8-3-3. Now it's 8-2-3. However, with the Snapping Claws, it was 4 extra attacks at 6-4-3. Now it is 4 extra attacks at 6-2-3. which is a major AP drop. However, it does have devastating wounds, which is quite nasty. Popping up 3 mortal wounds out of nowhere can be really gross. And last but not least, it does actually get even more attacks with its ritual knife, which I think was, yes, it was an end of the fight phase, pick a unit, do D3 mortals. Now it's just 3 more attacks at 6/2/2. Overall, this is a chunky melee profile. It'll be very, very good against lots of anti-elite infantry. You might notice that the Keeper of Secrets will actually do pretty poor against most large vehicles. And I'd say that's probably fair. The Keeper of Secrets was never what I considered a tank buster. It was a tank buster just due to the fact that it was a big demon before, but it was never as a role, I think, meant to be a tank buster. You know, kind of lies, Slaneshi ones, like dueling mortals and stuff. So it's a really good anti-infantry and elite infantry. You'll rip through things like Terminators. Terminators have a 2-up save, but you'll rip through things like Marines and stuff with ease. And Slanesh was always the army that was about lots of attacks. And when you think about it, if you're within range and you use the focused power, that's 15 shots out of them hitting on 2s, and then 13 extra attacks on 2s in melee. It's a hit. It hits. Also, it says they also have this aura, while friendly, demon monarchy within 6 inches of the model, improve the AP by 1. I think that it counts itself. Maybe, actually. This whole time I was talking about less AP, but now I'm starting to be unsure. Because it is a Slanesh Legions Demonica. So maybe it does get +1 AP on all these things, making this 3/3/3 instead of... this would be a 4 before, so it still would take a nerf overall, but that might be the case. The Soul Stain Discipline. So before it would have a reroll a hit roll of 1 for core units as its aura. The Soul Stain Discipline was one. Wasn't there one that gave +1 AP to a model's melee attacks? That may have been something else. Maybe like the Mask of Slanesh or something like that. I don't quite remember what it was, but it was something. It was something. Shalaxi? Oh, that's Selexi. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Screw it. Okay, well, that probably does count itself. So it probably does get AP3. So I apologize. I screwed that up. But it's only the melee weapons. And I think with the lower strength overall, it won't be as difficult. Because the Keeper would just kind of rip through anything that ever existed ever. Even if it was wounding on 5s, it didn't really care, because a couple that went through with AP4 would just eat a tank up. So I'm actually okay with that, because its biggest problem is still its low strength. So you won't be really ripping through vehicles as well. You'll be wounding a Baneblade on 5s with a sword and the rest with 6s. So, okay, it's fine. Anyway, sorry, I spent a lot of time on this and I didn't really put 2 and 2 together right there. So it'll work out. Moving on. Be'lakor, the guy, the spiteful, jealous prick. Be'lakor. Be'lakor has the monster character Fly Psyker, the epic hero, so you can only have him out there. I need to double check to see if epic hero said only one of each epic hero, or one epic hero in general. Like, I don't know, can you take like Be'lakor plus another epic hero that isn't Be'lakor, or is it just Be'lakor? But he is 12-inch move, so slightly slower, but it's fine, he can fly. T10, same toughness, save doesn't matter. 18 wounds, same wounds, 6 leadership, and 5 OC. They are pretty much identical in their stat line, with a slightly better save and a slightly slower movement. So he explodes, lovely. He also has deep strike, and he also has stealth. I'm not sure what stealth means. We thought that stealth meant -1 to hit, right? We assumed stealth meant -1 to hit. But the Keeper has mesmerizing form, which is -1 to hit. And that makes you wonder, why not just give them stealth? So perhaps stealth confers other things. My thought was maybe stealth might be when this unit is receiving the benefits of cover, it also gains a -1 to hit because it's being stealthy and cover and stuff. But I'm not quite sure yet. We haven't quite figured out what the stealth ability is. Anywho, Dark Master is pick one of the three. Oh, no, whoops, that's the shadow form. Dark Master is the area of the battlefield within 6 inches of this model is considered to be within your army's shadow of chaos. That's really fun. That has so many implications. And shadow form is pick one of the 3 on the bottom left. He's also damaged at 1 through 6, and his invul save is a 4 up. So roughly the exact same stat line as the Keeper, except no 5 up field, no pain, and no -1 to hit, maybe stealth being there. We'll go with the weapons first, and we'll talk about the shadow form abilities. The weapons is a psychic attack, Betraying Shades. It is quite a lot of effects. Devastating Wounds, ignores cover also, and it is 18-inch range, 9 attacks at 521, or 18-inch range, 12 attacks at 631. 12 attacks with Hazardous, I mean, that's got a good chance of hurting yourself, actually. But that increase in power, and that's a good AP profile, too. We'll have to see how it turns out. And with Devastating, also pretty good. But woof, that is, you're probably going to take some mortals. I think statistically, you'll take 2 mortal wounds every single time you do this. So, and then for your weapon, you have the Blade of Shadows. Your strike is 6 attacks at strength 14, AP 4, and D6 plus 1. No ignoring invuls. You do get lethal hits though, but no ignoring invuls. So it'll auto wound on 6s, but that's about it. That's a meaty profile, dude. That's a meaty one. Only 6 attacks is not much, but you will put some hurt on tanks. Any tank that has a 3-up save will certainly be feeling that. D6 plus 1 damage profile is a bit low. I kind of would have liked maybe either a D3 plus 3 or a 2D3, something like that maybe. D6 plus 1 has the good chance of spiking pretty low. So it's a little iffy there, especially because you're going to be hitting on 2s and then wounding on 3s against most things you want to attack. 4s on the monolith. But I don't know. Lethal hits is there. The AP is really, really good. It'll still put some hurt. And then the sweep profile is actually quite strong at 14 at 831. That'll just clear through hordes of infantry like guardsmen and the like. Only at 1 damage makes it going to be a little bit less potent at things like Marines, but even at Marines, strength 8, AP 3, 14 attacks, you'll probably clear Marines pretty well. So it's a pretty good profile. Shadow form, you have 3. They're all psychic abilities, which is good to note because I'm sure that there are things in the game that will tell you no psychic, which, Black Templars, Sisters especially. So we'll see how that turns out. You get to pick one of the 3, much like the other major characters. The first one is a demon unit within 6 inches can only be targeted by ranged attacks if the attacking model is within 18 inches. That's really good. That is really good. Now, 18 inches is both quite a lot and not that much in a weird way. 18 inches is one of those kinds of ranges where you're like, okay, wow. In order to be within 18, it's not too hard because the game board is, if the opponent wants to be within close range to you, it isn't the most difficult thing to do. But you don't really want to be within close range of motherfucking Be'lakor. And so in order to be within 18 inches of him to shoot him, because it's friendly Legiones Demonica, which is himself as well. It also would mean like the Keeper of Secrets too, because it's a Legiones Demonica. And all the battle line stuff, you need to be within 18 inches to shoot them. And often in order to deal with demons, you kind of like try to stay on the outskirts of their charge range to really make sure you don't get hurt by them. But then it's 18 inches, man. That's oof. That's going to hurt. And if you actually want to get in range to attack them, he moves 12. They move 14. You're going to get charged next turn, my guy. So that's actually quite powerful. Really nasty. And it gives him and all the other big demons a huge load of survivability. Especially from long range armies like Guard, Tau, and anything else that's running tanks. Moving up next is Pal of Despair. In the Battle Shock step of your opponent's command phase, if this enemy unit that is below its starting strength is within 6 inches of this model, that unit must take a Battle Shock test. For purpose of this ability, if a unit has a starting strength of 1, it is considered below starting strength while it has lost 1 or more wounds. So basically, this turns the Battle Shock test into a under half strength into just have you lost anybody, or if you're a major like creature or whatever, have you lost 1 wound, that is. That's pretty darn good. That combined with the Dark Master's aura, meaning that within 6 inches, your army's Shadow of Chaos. So if you do any damage to any models or any units, anyone is hurt within 6 inches of Be'lakor, you must take a Battle Shock test. You're within the Shadow of Chaos, so you must subtract 1 from the Battle Shock test. And if you fail it, you take D3 mortal wounds. I am shook, like, oh my God, shook at how Games Workshop is actually making morale a genuinely reasonable thing to work with. Especially because the last one, Shadow Lord, is 6-inch aura of reroll Battle Shock and leadership tests, which, when you think about it, if they're within 6 inches of Be'lakor, then you are within our Shadow of Chaos. So this reroll will allow you to regen units and wounds significantly easier. Also, being 6 inches in the army's Shadow of Chaos means you can deep strike right next to Be'lakor, which is a great variation of the Warp Locus ability we currently have and the manifestation. I am shocked. I know I'm Mr. Positive. I know I'm always like, this looks great and this is amazing. But I am just really impressed with how good they've been able to convert the concepts of the leadership and make it a usable thing. And they've found a way to make the prior rules fit in a fair and understandable way here. It is shocking to me, genuinely shocking, and I'm just really happy to be seeing it. So, Be'lakor, goddamn, you look like you will be a genuinely great unit to run, depending on your points cost, of course. So, let's continue moving on. We have the lovely Great Unclean One with its Bile Blade. It is 3 attacks, 6/2/2, basically explaining what extra attacks are. It also has lethal hits. Just kind of explain what it is. Very simple extra attacks. Nice, nothing too special to go along with it. And this looks like Scarbrand. Scarbrand. We have Strike and Sweep, Slaughter and Carnage. Strike, 8 attacks, hits on 2s, strength 16, AP 4, 6 damage, or 16 attacks, 8/1/2. So, 2 things to note here. Remember what I said earlier about Slaanesh not really being the tank busters? Leave that to the Bloodthirsters. Bada bing, bada boom, baby. Strength 16. Good God. Yeah, wounds everything basically on 3s. Anything strength 8 or lower on 2s. AP 4, flat 6 damage and 8 attacks. Compared to Be'lakor's 6 attacks and D6 plus 1 damage. Enormously powerful. This is going to hurt so bad. I also am glad that the sweep attack is a lot less potent, I suppose. There was a thing that GW was doing in 9th that was really starting to annoy me, which was making sweep attacks have like AP 3 for no good reason. Bloodthirster, here we are. Yeah, Axe of Corn, strength 8, AP 3, damage 1, AP 3. Or the Great Axe of Corn, which was AP 3 damage 2. It was way too strong. Way too strong. Actually, funny enough, the Great Axe of Corn is right here has actually been buffed. Crazy enough. Oh, wait, this is a regular Bloodthirst. This isn't Scarbrand. Where is Scarbrand? What's Scarbrand hit like? Strength. Oh no, it's basically it's almost identical. It's actually better. So in crazy a crazy situation, this actually got buffed. 8 attacks at strength 16, which is, well, not quite, because times 2 and 8 strength is different now compared to toughness. In reality, the strength is somewhat nerfed in relative terms, but the damage is way better. It did lose the invulnerable saving ignoring, but that's fine. We don't need to worry about that. That's stupid. So this is going to hit like an absolute train. But I'm actually really happy the sweep is only AP 1. Still good strength, though, and still good damage, but AP 1 makes it a lot more acceptable. Yeah, you want tank busting, take some corn. Last but not least, stratagem. Corrupt real space, 1 CP. One more thing I'd like to ask all of you in case I got this wrong. Someone mentioned to me on Twitter that they were lowering the CP amounts, as in you are getting 1 per command phase. And I don't know if that means you are starting with 0 and getting 5 throughout the entire game, or starting at 0 and getting 10 throughout the entire game. I think 10 makes more sense. They're going to do the usual thing where every turn you gain a CP because it's more reactive, more fun. You get one of your opponents and one of yours. But you start with 0, probably because all of your warlord traits and relics are now point buff enhancements now instead. But I'm not quite sure, because if that is the case, then 2 CP is actually a pretty penny. It's the whole 1/5 of your entire game CP. When I was looking at the reinforcement step of the prior one on guard, so kind of curious about that. Let me know if I'm wrong. Anyway, start of any command phase. 1 Legiones Daemonica unit from your army that's within range of an objective marker you control. The objective marker is said to be corrupted and remains under your control even if you have no models within range of it until your opponent controls it at the start or end of any turn. In addition, while an objective marker is corrupted and under your control, the area of that battlefield within 6 inches of the objective marker is considered to be within your army's shadow of chaos. So, this is a really great thing. You can make it so that's the start of your command phase to allow you to then turn that into your warp rift, whatever, to bring in guys wholly within 6 inches of that objective marker, so long as they're outside of 6 of the enemy. You can use that before your own models take battle shock tests to pass them better and possibly regen units. You can do it before your opponent takes their battle shock test to hurt them more, if you still control it, that is. And it's just a nice little tool in the toolbox. Makes things like boop, creates your own little turf, screws morale, makes things all weird and strange. And also, yeah, lowering the battle shock test makes it so that their overall amount is 0. Their objective control, which would keep it under your control for longer because of the -1 to leadership. So lots of good options there. Pretty great 1 CP. Really leaning into that shadow of chaos. I like it. Word from the studio real quick. God damn, that artwork. God damn. Kind of old school. I like it. Chaos Demon armies are predominantly melee focused, and with every unit being able to deep strike, it's no easy task for a foe to keep themselves safe. This is especially true thanks to the demonic incursion detachment rule warp strike, which enable when one faces an army of chaos, they are facing the warp itself, or for where they fight, the boundaries between real space and the immaterium are thin. That's the intent behind their army rule, the idea that as the Chaos Demons fight, they spread the warp itself over the battlefield. And while such a thing is beneficial to demons, it's a literal hellscape to mortals. Yes. I like that a lot. That is just exactly the vibe I got. I don't know what they're fighting on or what is happening, but the ground itself is grabbing them. And that is just horrifying. Good Lord Almighty. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a long one. I'm sorry. This was like 40 minutes long. I am a really big fan of this. This is such a fluffy and flavorful and yet decently skillful way to run demons. There's not much choice to be had in terms of Shadow of Chaos, but by grabbing certain things, it creates choice. Holding at least half of the Detachment markers in No Man's Land, turning it into the Shadow of Chaos, all that kind of stuff, pretty big deal. And it really adds a lot. It forces your opponent to push back as fast as possible, or else they're going to take a ton of problems. They found a good way to make Locust decent. They found a nice way to concisely explain putting demons in chaos armies. The Keeper's looking good. Bellacor's looking real good. They explained the extra attacks thing. Scarbrand looks like he's going to kill some dudes, and it's a great stratagem. I am full stop very pleased with how demons are looking right now. They look a lot more interactive than they used to look, which is good because they were a little bit not uninteractive. Okay, let's find out what the next one is if they updated it this time. Oh yes! Let's go! My favorite army. Oh, they're doing sisters tomorrow. Let's fucking go. Oh my god. Oh my god. All right, sick. I'll see you tomorrow. Oh boy.